Hey guys, Gerald Hall with FloorShield here. And we know that if you're thinking about getting FloorShield coating for your garage floor, your pool deck, or your patio, you probably have some questions and maybe some concerns. Our FloorShield dealers talk to tens of thousands of homeowners each year. And so we've put together this video that answers the most commonly asked questions by homeowners and business owners like you. So the most commonly asked questions that we're going to cover in this video are, first and foremost, how much does it cost to put FloorShield on my garage floor, patio, or pool deck? Then we're going to talk about some of the options that you have, because FloorShield and polyaspartic's not the only option that you have for your garage floor. And honestly, it might not be the best fit for you. So we're going to give you some options about that. The next most commonly asked question that we get here at FloorShield is, hey, tell me about the installation process. And so we're going to cover that in detail. And then finally, we're going to talk about the warranty that you get, 15-year warranty with FloorShield polyaspartics. By far, the most popular question we get, the most urgent question that we get, whether we're in the home with the homeowners or at home shows, is how much does it cost to put FloorShield on my garage floor, patio, or pool deck, or even a commercial installation? So the quick answer on cost per square foot for FloorShield is going to range anywhere from $6 a square foot to about $9 a square foot for your garage, your patio, or your pool deck. But there are several factors that go into that range of pricing, and so we want to talk about those in detail. Now, the simplest and easiest thing to talk about when we talk about cost factors for concrete coatings is the size of the area that you're going to put coating on. So a two-car garage that might be 450 or 500 square feet obviously is going to be a lot more expensive than a single-car garage. The second factor that is a little more complicated than just square footage is how good a shape is the concrete in? Like, what is the condition of the pad is a term we hear a lot. There are things like cracks, repairs, moisture levels in the concrete that really can affect the cost of a job. Moisture, for example, can be abated. You simply use a water-based moisture barrier epoxy, which typically turns it into a 2-day job versus a 1-day job. Now you're going to talk about labor differences and a little additional product. Simple crack repairs, fillers, things like that don't usually have a big impact on the cost of a concrete coating, but if there are foundational issues and you need to bring in concrete repair, those are two different things. And lastly, one of the biggest factors that go into the cost of putting a concrete coating, in our case FloorShield, on your garage floor or your commercial business is simply the quality of the product. There are a ton of products out there on the market, from epoxies to polyureas to polyaspartics, that you can choose from. And even within the same category of epoxy, polyureas, and polyaspartics, there are varying degrees of qualities. There's different solids contents, solvents, things of that nature that go into the product, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So when it comes to product options for coating your garage floor, your patio, or maybe even a commercial property, you really have three major areas that you can choose from. First and foremost is epoxy. And epoxy's been around for a long time. It's tried and true. And actually, we manufacture an entire line of epoxies, which I wouldn't recommend for most applications, especially in a residential environment, simply because it's an old technology. But it really is about the quality of ingredients that you put in your product. And there's a better technology out there than epoxy for most residential and commercial situations. And the next product that you have to choose from, and there's a lot of it on the market, is a product called polyurea. And they're typically used in a blended system. For example, a lot of dealers that are out there doing good work with this product, they put down a polyurea base coat, and then they'll cover that with a polyaspartic top coat. We call that a blended system. And there's some challenges, just like with epoxies, with these blended systems, with things like UV stability. Polyurea is better than epoxy in most situations. It gets you to a 1-day job, and you can turn those out in 4 to 6 hours on average, and it's a good product. It's better than epoxy. It's a good product, but it does have inferior adhesion when it comes to polyaspartics, about 40% less adhesion based on our lab testing, and the product is not UV stable, which means it will yellow. So if it's on a pool deck or a sidewalk, or that front apron of your garage. And I don't want to oversell, I don't want to sound negative about UV stability. It's important, and it's certainly important if aesthetically it could be an issue for you. Probably 90 to 95% of that concrete coating is going to be covered with flake anyway, but we just like to be transparent about the levels of the product and the things that you can expect as a homeowner. You got a lot of choices to make, and we want to be as transparent and clear as possible about the pros and cons of all the products, especially FloorShield. Finally, we're going to talk about polyaspartics. And polyaspartics were invented by the Bayer Corporation in the early 2000s, originally as a metal coating. And through testing and usage, they found out that it was absolutely the best coating technology for concrete. So there are really three key aspects that make FloorShield, we feel, a superior polyaspartic to polyurea and epoxies out there. First is adhesion, and we're going to talk about that. Next up, we're going to talk about the UV stability of polyaspartics. It's a really cool technology that's out there. And finally, we're going to talk about our anti-slip. You know, nobody wants to put a coating on a floor and have it be slippery. And so we put all of our products through a series of tests, independent third-party tests for each of these areas. And so regardless of whether you go with epoxy or polyurea or hopefully FloorShield polyaspartics, ask your dealers, ask your companies for that independent third-party testing data. We can all say great things about our product, but honestly, we're a little bit biased, right? So independent third-party testing is key to what we do here at FloorShield. So when I say the word adhesion, it's honestly in any coating, and here at Amcoat we manufacture wall coatings and floor coatings. Adhesion is one of the most important aspects of any concrete coatings product. How you prepare the floor and then how well it sticks to the floor. The strength was measured in PSI. FloorShield, we had it tested independently by a company called Integrated Linear Dynamics. They're up in Noonan, Georgia, and they do what's called a pull test, where they take the product while it's good and wet, they take a metal pull device to it, and they let it dry and set up. And then they see how many pounds per square inch of pressure that it takes to pull our product off the concrete. And FloorShield pulled at 442 PSI. We tested it side by side with a polyurea that we went out on the market and purchased, and that polyurea pulled at 318 PSI. The difference of 40% between a full 100% polyaspartic system and a blended polyurea system in this independent third-party lab test. Next, we're going to talk about polyaspartics and UV stability. It's a pretty cool test that we run with our partners up in Noonan, Georgia again, where they take our product and put it side by side again with a polyurea competition and an epoxy competition. We put them in what's called a QUV lamp, and we accelerate the lighting in there for 1,000 hours worth of testing. The polyaspartic system, perfect, unblemished, didn't change, but the polyurea systems and the epoxy systems did see deterioration, and we call it instability when it comes to UV. They faded and turned a little amber with the sunlight that was on them. So it's really cool to have a product that sticks on the concrete really well, a product that looks good even in sunlight, but none of that's really that important if your floor is slippery when you get done. And at FloorShield, we take anti-slip very, very seriously. So what we found after all of this trial and error testing was the industry best non-slip formulation with FloorShield. OSHA's standard for non-slip is called a coefficient of friction test. So we partnered with a company out of Tennessee in Volunteer Non-Slip Services to test our product and to test several versions of non-skid silicas that we apply in our product to make sure that when your floor is put down, your FloorShield product is on your garage floor, patio, or pool deck, that it is safe to walk on. So OSHA has two different tests when it comes to non-slip. One is a dry test. So when the floor is dry, how safe is it to walk on, and how do we compare to what OSHA calls a safe floor? Second, they do a wet test, which seems like it's far more important than the dry test. So FloorShield formulation with our non-slip silica met 151% of OSHA's dry slip coefficient test. Pretty impressive, 151%. When we got our wet test back, we were even more shocked in a good way. FloorShield's formulation in OSHA's wet slip coefficient test met 207% of OSHA's recommended requirement. So one of the biggest things that I think causes homeowners in particular sometimes a little bit of maybe I can wait, or I've got to put this off, is that the first thing you got to do if you're going to get your garage floor coated is you got to get everything out of your garage. And that's a pretty big pain for a lot of us, me personally. But once you do, you're going to be so excited with the results. So first and foremost, you got to decide how much stuff is in your garage and where it's going to go. Many homeowners will simply put the things in the driveway, cover it with a tarp so that weather's not a factor. Others will go so far as to either rent a roll-off pod or maybe even just a U-Haul truck that's got a ramp on it. So you just got a few options, but first and foremost, you got to get everything out of your garage so that we can apply a FloorShield coatings to it. So once everything's out of your garage and you're ready for your crew to arrive on site, the first thing that they're going to do is make sure we prep and mask everything off. So what gets a coating, and what's not supposed to have coating on it is going to be protected from the environment. Next up, we're going to grind the concrete floor. Our FloorShield dealers use diamond grinders, concrete grinders that go across and take off about the top 1/16 of the concrete. Remember, we talked about adhesion, and the best way to get superior adhesion is to make sure that the concrete pad is prepped properly. So once the concrete pad is finished with the grinding process, we're gonna vacuum all that. We've got good vacuums as we're grinding, but we're gonna vacuum up all of that loose silica to make sure that there's not any left on there when we put the color coat on. The next step in the application process is the application of the color coat. And while one crew member is putting down the color coat and rolling it out and making sure it's nice and smooth, another crew member is going to come right behind them with the flakes that you've chosen for your garage floor. So once the color coat's dried and the flakes are applied and scraped and all the loose flakes are off, it's time for the clear coat application, the final step in the process. So your Floor Shield crew is going to mix the clear coat and apply it very similarly to how the color coat was put down. It's going to be back rolled so that it's nice and smooth, and then we're going to allow time for that to dry. And as that clear coat is drying, your Floor Shield crew will be cleaning up the area, taking all of the unnecessary items and packing them back in the truck or trailer. And once the clear coat is dried, they're going to do a quick test to make sure everything looks right, and then you can sign off on your new Floor Shield garage floor coating.